And tonight's the night for a great conversation. We have a super great guest on Ross Stevenson. But first of all, before we even get to her, remember you can follow us live at Hearts and Hills, the number one on social media. That's Facebook and that's YouTube and that's Instagram. Connect with us. We want to hear from you. Hey, Yolanda.
Hey, Shay Shay. It is wonderful being back in the studio. We have just had some good days, right?
Yes, yes, a lot of great days.
Yeah, some great days, and it's good to have our host on tonight. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. We have an author of the book called Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith, and her name is Roz Stevenson. And we just say thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us and sharing with us your experience with the book that you've written. And I'm pretty sure you have a story to tell. You have a story to tell. I want to ask, like I said, I want to get on with the conversation. I want to know a little bit more about you. Can you just tell us, how did you get on this road? What is Look at God? What is this faith walk that you have experienced? Can you share with us who you are and where you're from?
My name is Ross Stevenson, and I was born and raised in Compton, California. A lot of good things came out of Compton, believe it or not. Straight out of Compton. And I was raised by a Christian family, and my father worked for the post office. In addition to that, he had a janitorial business that specialized in waxing floors and cleaning windows. One of his clients was a man named Sam Brown. He was the head of the Motion Picture Academy, and he just loved my dad for his faithfulness to his family and his church and his scout troop and all of that. So in 1964, long before you guys were probably born, he gave our family 5 tickets to go to the Academy Awards. Wow. That changed our life, my life. After that night, which was the night when Sidney Poitier won for Best Actor in Lilies of the Field, the first African American to win Best Actor, it was magical. And I thought, this can't be the end. I have to work in Hollywood. I gotta find my way in there. And so this is my story, because what I did was begin to try to work in front of the camera as an actress, never thinking about what was my gift and what was my purpose. That was not my gift, but it took me a few years to get it through my head. This is not your gift. But, I eventually started doing other things in the industry through the acting workshop that I had been a part of. One of my friends there worked on a show called Good Times, and she got me on that show. And I worked as assistant to the producers. I started working with the writers on a program called the Minority Writers Program to try to find minorities to write some of the TV shows for Good Times, Jefferson's, and Different Strokes, and some of the other shows that Norman Lear produced. After I realized that wasn't my gift, I ended up at MGM Studios trying to go to become a production manager. That was my next big idea. In the middle of all of that, I had been married, I got a divorce, I had 2 children, and we were sitting in church one Sunday, and my son says we should join. And that's the day I rededicated my life to Christ, and it changed everything. And I ended up in the publicity department at MGM Studios, something I had no interest in. I had no knowledge of what a publicist did, but that was where I ended up. And I had a beautiful career for almost 30 years as a publicist. I became president of my own PR firm, and God was so good to me. When I was running around trying to find my own way, he put me right where I should be, and moved up.
you have definitely shared a lot of your story. I do want to talk about one or two things that you've already skipped over, Ms. Stevenson, because she said I'm gonna give it to you. One thing that you talked about in the book was Pretty Male. I want to talk about Pretty Male because we are a show that deal with women and relationships. I like that you laugh because I think it's important that we share about this story. Now, Pretty Male was your first husband. That's the one that took you through some things. Tell me, how did that, as you talk about your book, Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith, your relationships played a big role and a big part in this book and throughout your story. Tell me how Pretty Male almost took you from your walk of faith.
Well, I did walk away from my faith at that point. I was doing life my way. I wanted to get married at a young age. I wanted to go to Hollywood. And I just put my Christian faith in a little box in the corner somewhere and just figured I could figure this all out for myself. And life has a way of showing you that no, you don't have this all figured out. And the God that you came to know as a child is the same God who's going to get you out of this situation. Actually, my ex-husband, he was a fun guy. He was an irresponsible person. And by the time I figured that part out, we were deep in debt and with two children. And so he was from Memphis, matter of fact. And we ended up getting a divorce. And I went on my way to do what I was going to do in Hollywood. The first job that I had was working on the movie Lady Sings the Blues. I was still married to him. He took me to the Paramount Studios where that movie was being shot. And the guy who handled black extras, I was an extra, had told me to come to his house, and I didn't feel comfortable about that because it was like 4:30 in the morning. And so my ex-husband, Pretty Male, was not only pretty, he was 6'6" and 250 pounds. So when we went there, the guy came to the door and goes like, "Oops, okay, let me just get in my car and you follow me and we'll get to the studio." You know, I was the first person there.
Yes,
And
I love how you talked about, that relationship and how it took you through so much. And really because of that relationship, you brought it back to your children and how your children played such an impact. But I don't want to get there yet because we'll tell too much of your story. Now, you said you worked on Good Times. We all remember James and Florida. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Matter of fact, we just honored Norman Lear the other day. You know, he's 99 years old. He was the creator of that show. And my friend Bernadette Stannis, who played Thelma on Good Times, I spoke with her, and she came on and thanked him for her career and all that he had done for her. So I had a great time. I was on Good Times for 4 seasons, from the third till the end of the show. So it was a great experience. It was a lot of fun, and we had our ups and downs with the producers who were, none of them were African American. So there were many times when we agreed and disagreed on the way that they were writing about the black family. So we had quite a time. We had some bad times and good times.
Amen. Well, I know we got a lot more to talk about. Your book is called Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith, Ross Stevenson. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break, guys, and we'll be right back. Miss Stevenson.
Yes. You want me to talk shorter sound bites?
Turn your mic down just a little bit on your computer. Thank you, Facebook land, social media land, for staying with us. Ms. Stevenson will be right back on the air with her. Again, it's Roz Stevenson. She has a book called Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith. It's an amazing book. Make sure you go get it. We'll be right back after this break.
I took it down quite a bit. Is that better?
All right, Ms. Stevenson, we'll be back on the air in just a few moments to finish up this interview. Thank you for everything.
I took it down some. Is that better?
Turn it down some.
Turn it down just a little bit more, Miss Stevenson. Turn your mic down just a tad bit.
Is that better?
That's good. Okay, one or two more. It's just giving us a little feedback on our end. All right, hold on just a second. We'll have to go back and cut this out the video. Make sure you can hear us, but just turn down just a tad bit so you can give us some feedback. Yes, sir. Okay, say something. Say test.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Say test. Turn down one or two more. Yeah, I think we almost have it.
Say something else.
Yeah, test 1, 2.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, we get ready to come back on the air. Welcome back to Hearts and Hills. If you've missed it, we have Ross Stevenson that's on with us. She has been talking about her book, Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith by Ross Stevenson. Thank you so much. And if you've missed it, she's already told us about how she was ignited by her being able to see Sidney Poitier on the Oscar stage win his Oscar. And I can only imagine how that made you feel. Now, not only did you get a chance to see him win his Oscar and that ignited something in you, but you had the opportunity to work with Sammy Davis Jr. You hung out, you've been working with Sammy Davis Jr., Samuel Jackson, B. Richards, Grace Jones, and the list just goes on and on and on. I want you, from your perspective, to talk about how those experiences have shaped your walk.
It's been amazing, and I just found out through my experiences that everybody, even though they might be famous, are still regular human beings. And I treated people like I wanted to be treated, and it worked out really well. I had experiences with Cicely Tyson, Denzel Washington, Patrick Swayze, Tom Cruise, Anybody you can think of, Julia Roberts. I worked on film projects with all of them. I was the publicist that worked for the studio. So I was representing the films that they were in. Each person has their own personal publicist too. And we kind of coordinate interviews with them to so I worked for the studio and the motion pictures.
This is one of the questions that I heard you say my dad got 4 tickets and that was a ticket of lifetime.
Yes.
I heard you say that you got this job, but it was something transpired. What was an event that transpired for you to matriculate into being able to meet all of these famous people? I mean, was it because you were at the right place at the right time, or you made some bold moves? What was it?
Well, as a publicist, you work with whoever the stars are on the film. We come up with a marketing strategy and we set up press events. And so I was the broadcast publicist for many years at MGM and Universal. That meant I set up interviews for Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, Good Morning America, the Today Show, the Tonight Show, all of those types of national shows. And I also started at that time realizing that nobody was doing anything with the black press. So I did the black press on my own as a side job. And that eventually was what got me to have my own company.
Let's talk about the black press. What was tell me what, is it a news article? Was it you interviewing? Tell me what is black press for us? Because I don't know what is that like?
There's over 250 black weekly newspapers in the country. I contacted every newspaper in the country, got the name of their entertainment editors. I would write stories and send pictures to them about the upcoming movies that we had coming out so that they could do interviews. I set up interviews for syndicated radio like Tom Joyner Morning Show, Steve Harvey's show, those type of things. That's how I worked with the stars.
Yeah, I love how you shared all your different stories. But let's talk. What was the breakout movie? Because I find this really interesting. What was your breakout movie that you really got your first opportunity to be Roz?
The first movie that put me on the map as far as a publicist for black films was a film called Breaking'. It was a movie with an actor called Adolfo Quinones. He recently passed away. His nickname was Shabba Doo. He was on Soul Train. And the co-star of that movie was another young actor named Michael Chambers. They called him Turbo in the movie, but his nickname on the streets was Boogaloo Shrimp. So the studio picked up that movie at MGM. They didn't think much of it, but I had teenagers, boys who were all into breakdancing, and I knew how much they would love this movie. So I had them.
We love Breaking 1, 2, and 3.
So I had them set up a special screening of that on a Saturday afternoon, and I got my kids to get all of their friends, and we brought them into the studio and to watch the movie. And when the studio executives saw the reaction of these black kids to this movie, they were like, "Okay, Raj, you got this one. We're going to release it." And they released it during Easter vacation. That movie was #1 for several weeks, and
Wow.
The guys became instant stars, and we toured the country, starting in San Francisco and went across the country. And as that movie just took over, there was another movie coming out called Beach Street. We came out before them. Beach Street came out in June. We came out during Easter vacation. We took all the wind out of Beach Street. So that was from that point on. They was like, knows her stuff. She knows what's going to sell in the black community, you know. And so that was made me have a significant role in the department.
Yeah, I mean that's a wonderful feeling to know that you have a voice, and that voice was speaking loud and clear. I have to say, Breaking was one of my favorite movies growing up. Yolanda, you remember Breaking? She doesn't remember Breaking. I got to get her a movie night to watch Breaking.
I don't remember Breaking. I don't.
Yes, I have. I had. Let me tell you, Miss Stevenson. I love this movie so. I had my kids. We used to have Friday night movie nights, and I said, "Oh, we got to watch Breaking." And one of the funniest things my son said was, "I can't believe you guys used to fight dancing. Who fights dancing with those little bitty shirts on?" But they loved it. Now, if you have never watched Breaking, make sure you go check it out. It is a great movie. It is about dancing. That's pretty much all it's about. Dancing. That's it. It is. If you remember,
break dancing,
like Honey in New School.
Yeah.
It's the old. Yeah, it's the old school Honey. So we love it. Now there were many opportunities, and you talk about like your experiences and how they transformed you. Now in your book, you talk about a lot of the job loss, because I think sometimes when people see success, they don't see the struggle, the fight, the hard times, the things you go through to really make it there. And we all know that, behind success is a story that's filled with a lot of ups and downs and ups and downs. Tell us what kept you in those down moments.
Well, once I became a publicist, I loved the job, so there was nothing that they could do to make me ever back out of that. I remember when I was trying to become a publicist, I had gone to school to UCLA to get my PR designation, and the president said in July, when the new fiscal year started, he would put me in the position of an apprentice publicist. At that time, I was assistant, and the lady that I was working for got let go. She was fired. And I went to a funeral, and when I came back that day, someone else was sitting in my desk. And I was like, what's going on? It was like a month before I was going to be made a publicist, And so the lady who took over her job said, go talk to Al, who was the president. And Al said, oh, we're just trying to make her happy, and we're going to have you go down the hall and work for taking RSVPs for screenings and premieres. And I was like, what? And I really stood up for myself, and I told him, I said, you know what? If that's my choice, I'll go home. I'd rather do that than to go down there and take RSVPs. And I said, I called the union, and the lady does not even qualify to sit at my desk. I was a level 1 secretary, and she was a clerk. Thank goodness for the union. So the lady who was the boss went into the president's office, and they called the union and found out that what I said was true. And so she was angry. She says, I'll take her, but I don't want to. But what had happened was my boss had not been in the office for, she was checking out. She was in and out. I ran everything, and I stood on every move. So I had to work for a lady who didn't like me, didn't want me there. And she had to ask me what was next. And when she found out that I knew everything that she needed to do, she went to the president and said, you know what? You should make her a publicist. I don't know what I've done without her. But if I had accepted what they had said, I don't know where I would have ended up.
Let's transition for a moment. Back to your title, Look at God. Can you explain what you were going through when you began to pen this title, Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith? Let's talk about that part of you, who you are, Roz. Let's talk about that. What transitioned your life that allowed you to pen this title, Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith?
The reason I named it that was because if you looked at where I started, where I didn't know my purpose, I wasn't serving God, I had to rededicate my life to Him. And at that point, everything came together. My personal life, I ended up with a new husband who I've now been with for over 40 years. and I ended up with a beautiful home and a beautiful career, and president of my own company for the last 10 years of my career. So that's what I look at, where I started at the bottom as an extra, not knowing what I could offer and contribute to Hollywood, and where I ended up and all the experiences that I had. It was only God that got me through. He was just been so faithful and wonderful to me, even when I wasn't faithful to him.
And so, was there any moment that your relationship became real with God? I want you to kind of like take me. I want you to take me to the moment. Let's not. I want to feel your experience right now. I want you to tell me what was something that happened that said, I made it at this point for a reason.
The cry at the altar.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
What was the cry at the altar?
Well, I don't know if you mean when I rededicated my life. My son was the one. We were sitting in the back row of the church, and when the pastor opened the door and asked people if anyone wanted to come forward to accept Christ, my son said, "Mommy, we should go." And at that
How old
moment,
was your son?
he was like 11 or 12 at the time. I know I was walked up and he didn't come. My younger son came, but the son who suggested it, he's very shy and he didn't go forward. And the minute I walked up there and rededicated my life, I could feel the Holy Spirit inside of me, and tears just started coming down my face. And I was just knew that God had re-entered my life. And from that moment on, he directed everything that happened for me, and everything was just magnificent. And it actually took me to retire and look back at all the experiences that I had and know that where God had made it happen for me each and every time. There's one point in the book where I talk about MGM Studios being sold, and I was told that I was among the people who would be let go. I finally had my dream job, and now where was I going to go? There are only 5 major studios, only 5 positions in most publicity departments. I didn't know anybody. Most of them were Jewish, and I didn't have those type of relationships, but I had God. And I remember getting so depressed that I thought that here I finally got the job I wanted, and it was getting ready to go away. My husband called me to see how I was doing. He was on location somewhere, and he said, "Have you packed your boxes?" And I was like, "That's a stupid question. I'm sitting here being depressed, and he's asking me about packing boxes." But I went and started packing my boxes. In the process of cleaning out my office, the phone rang, and it was the president of the division. And he said to me, I have to let you know that you're going to be let go. I said, "Well, they already told me." He said, "Well, officially 10 days before you have to be told." And my boss was on vacation. The president had never called me before. And he said, "Have you been looking?" And I said, "Yes." And I told him the 3 job interviews that I had gone on. I said, the only one I really love to have would be at Universal Studios. And he said, "Well, who did you talk to there?" And I told him. He said, "Who is that?" I said, "Well, he's the director." He said, "Do you want that job?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I'm calling my friend Barry. He's the president of marketing over at Universal." He hung up the phone. 5 minutes later, he called and said, "You got the job." I was like, "What?"
Yes.
I was like, "Oh, thank you, Jesus." And I called my husband. I was in tears. I was so happy that I had gotten that position. And when the guy called me, Brian, who I had interviewed with, he said, "Welcome to our staff. When do you want to start?" I was being let go in 10 days. Well, I told him that next Monday I would be there. He said, "You can take all the time you want." But I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to put my nameplate on that test." And I'm going to be there.
I don't blame you.
I mean, you shared a lot in your book about all the things, and you kept calling them. What was interesting is that you didn't refer to them as blessings, you refer to them as miracles. And a lot of people talk about how we are not experiencing miracles, but I love how you reference them in miracles. Why do you see all the things that God brought you through and the things that the experiences He allowed you to have? Why did you see them as miracles versus blessings?
Well, like in that situation that I just described, the president had never called me. That was the only time the man ever called me in my career at MGM. And the fact that the other president of the studio where I really wanted the job was his good friend, that was a miracle. So it was just things that happened from out of the blue that just made the difference in me going home and getting on unemployment or having a new job at a major studio. And Universal is the studio that ultimately gave me my own company. They saw my value. We did two movies, one called The Best Man and one called The Hurricane, starring Denzel Washington. And the president, our new president there, it was a lady, she called me and she said, I asked about the black press and they said that you could do anything that we needed. And she said, but that's not your job, and I think it should be. Would you do me a proposal and show me everything that we missed by not having someone specifically working on the African American press? And I did that. When I came back, she wanted to make me the vice president of special markets. When I brought in the report, she says, this is exactly what I need. However, we're now having to cut staff and I can't add a new position. At that point, I thought, oh my God, I did all of this for nothing. And she said, but I still want to do it. How about I start your own company and we come in as your main client?
Wow.
I never saw that coming. And I was like, oh, I would love that. And they gave me an open contract, but they were my main client every year, year after year. And I was able to also get work from Paramount, Sony Pictures, HBO, Screen Gems, every other, DreamWorks, everybody. So that was a miracle to me.
So you talk about black press and the importance of black press, and I do think it is important that we engage at so many levels of black press. But and I want you to tell the people the impact that you've had in your work. And when I say the impact, I'm referring to how you help Jamie Foxx in the background, the work that you did on the movie Ray with Jamie Foxx and how and what type of impact that had. So explain to people the type of movies and the impact that you've had.
Well, for Ray, every black magazine, Ebony, Essence, all of the major black magazines, Jamie was the cover. I had relationships with each one of those magazines. When I started my company, I went around the country and visited each and every black publication and asked them, how can I better serve you? And they said, just take our call. That was so sad to me because they were overlooked so many times. The publicists for many of our big stars, they're a package. They come with whoever their agent is. They assign the publicist, and they assign the manager, and they assign the attorneys. So we're left out. And the white publicists don't care about the black press. They don't come to have relationships with them. I called every year, me and my staff called every black newspaper and made sure that I knew if it was the same entertainment editor, if they were able to use the stories that we were sending them. Were they getting ads from the studio? I got many of the black newspapers ads where they had never received ads for the upcoming black films. So that it helped them have revenue. So you just had to, I was a go-between. That was me, the studio, and the black press. I represented the black press to the studio. There would be newspapers like there's one called Rolling Out. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It comes out of Atlanta, and it's a throwaway paper that you'll find in a lot of our soul food restaurants. It's a nationwide newspaper. They didn't know anything about rolling out, but the president of marketing, he said, "If you say it's good, Roz, we'll do it." And I was able to get them cover stories, and I got The Rock's first cover on Jet magazine. He was so excited; he had never been on a cover of anything except wrestling magazines. And I got him in Jet. He was so excited; he just jumped through the hoops about that because it was something that being in Jet magazine was a big deal for Black
It
folks.
was.
They,
Yeah.
but it didn't mean anything to the white publicists who are looking for Entertainment Weekly and Variety and Hollywood Reporter and Time and Newsweek. They didn't care about the Black publications. So it's still very important for us to be there and to represent our people.
Now I know that you worked with movies. I know one person that you worked with a lot that you share a lot about was Eddie Murphy. That you worked on a lot of
Yeah.
movies with him, and you were a part of the moving everything forward for him. Just tell us about how you went for those publicists or those people out there who are interested in getting into entertainment and being a publicist. Tell me, how did you create those connections? Now we know God worked miracles for you because we have heard about your miraculous stories, but what are some things as a young person, somebody who wants to be in marketing and somebody who's looking forward to getting into this type of industry, what are some things that they can do to get themselves in position to do the work that you've done so well?
Really, a publicist is a multitasker. First of all, I think it's important to get your college degree, and if you can get it in journalism or communications, it gives you a good foundation for being a marketing executive. Uh, you, I was a person always who planned all the parties at school, parties for my family, and I was always in student government, so I was that person that always could think of ways to reach people. So that was another part of it. Being able to write is one thing, but being able to know how to socialize and connect people and what is a good fit for certain situations and how to make it nice and better or whatever. So we did that kind of thing. We also treated Black press like they should be treated, that we really appreciated them. Before my company started, Black press rarely went to the set of a movie that was in production. I knew from working inside at the studio that they would have teen magazines go on the set, they would have sci-fi magazines go on the set if it was appropriate for that film. So if it was a Black film, why didn't the Black press get to go out there on that film location and interview the stars and start giving early awareness to our people about this upcoming film? So we went to Canada. I took like 20 Black press there to meet Eddie Griffin for a movie called Undercover Brother, and so they interviewed them on the set. They got to watch them making the movie and be able to tell their listeners or their readers about this upcoming hilarious movie that was coming out. We did, we did it for a lot of different films, but that was the very first. And in the evenings, my son worked for me at that time, and he was the one who set up activities for the nighttime. He find out what clubs were the best ones and get a VIP section for our press and get them treated right. And they appreciated it so much. We had lovely dinners and breakfasts the whole time. They still talk about how much fun they had when I was working and had my company. Things kind of fell apart after that.
Wow. Now, we always love a good juicy story, right? Everybody loves a little tea. So you guys spill a little tea, Roz. Who was the hardest person to work with?
Who was the hardest?
Yes.
Probably Bill Cosby,
Bill
because
Cosby.
Yes, I worked with Bill Cosby on a film called Ghost Dad. The movie was a flop, but his TV show was such a hit that he was pretty hard to deal with. He was uh, had a lot to say, and nobody else could talk. When he was talking, he had to be referred to as Mr. Cosby. And so, he was not easy, but he liked me because he had also worked with my husband. My husband was the top black motion picture hairstylist in the industry for many years. So he knew me through my husband. And so he gave me a little more uh, kind actions and than he did other people. But I did one of the best events that I ever did while making that movie with uh, Harlem Nights that Eddie Murphy was doing, which my husband was working on that movie, and I was working on Ghost Dad, and we had a softball game against them, and we were able to bring our families, and it was 1,500 people. I had it catered for them with barbecue and everything you could think of. We had a dance contest. One of the kids in our movie was Cuba Gooding's brother, Omar. So Cuba Gooding's mother told me, she said, well, my other son, Cuba Jr., he's about to make a movie with a kid from USC. And I'm thinking to myself, student film. And he said, it's called Boys in the Hood. And I'm going like, they need to change that title. Well, I had to eat those words, didn't I? But anyway, he danced during our dance contest. We had a James Brown dance contest that day. He danced with Leela Rashawn, who played Sunshine in Harlem Nights. And he was a good break dancer. He was break dancing and tearing it up. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. He might not make it with that little
break dancing.
Yeah, he won the dance contest with Leela Rashawn.
That's amazing. I love it. I hate that Bill Cosby was so hard to get along with. So who was your best client?
Oh, you know what? One of the people I really enjoyed, who everybody thought was going to be difficult, and he just loved me. That was Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry.
Yeah, I did a documentary called Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll with Chuck Berry. It was done by Taylor Hackford, who was also the director of Ray. So Chuck had given them a hard time all across the country, everywhere he went, and California was his last stop. And they go, Ross, you got to go handle this guy because he is just tough. The minute he saw me, I said, good morning, Mr. Berry. I said, I'm Ross Stevenson. I'll be working with you today, and I wanted to go over our schedule. And he put his arms around me and he said, sister, whatever you want me to do, we gonna do. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he was getting his start on the Hollywood Walk of Fame after we finished doing all of the syndicated radio that morning. So as we approached in the limousine, the star ceremony, all of the staff from Universal, my bosses, were standing there trying to see what was Chuck gonna act like. And he came out of that limousine with his arms around me, and they were like, what the hell did you do to Chuck? They couldn't believe how wonderful he was and how he cooperated and did everything that I wanted him to do, except for at the end of the evening, they had set up a stage at the premiere for him to sing, but they never had asked him. And Chuck was an old-time R&B guy. He had to be paid first in cash, and he wasn't singing a note. So he told me, I'm leaving. Let's go. To get my car. And Taylor Hackford saw him leaving, and he came and said, Chuck, can I talk to you? And he balled up some $100 bills and put them in Chuck's hand. And Chuck looked at that money and turned around and said, okay, come on, baby, we're going back. And he sang everything from his repertoire for about $300.
Wow. Chuck said, I need my money first. We say that.
That's right. That's right.
Now, we just want to share some of the movies that you've worked on.
Superman 3, Flashdance, the Jesse Owens story.
No,
I
that's my
consider.
husband's. That's my
This your
husband's.
husband's list.
Okay.
Not,
This your
mine is
husband's list
before
of
his.
movies.
Huh?
His filmography is after mine.
Okay.
Okay, we got you. We got you covered now. This is some movies you work with.
What about The Help?
The Help.
Yes, that was something I was asked to do after I had retired. I supervised a 12-city tour with the stars of the movie and the director. We started in Los
Evan,
Angeles.
Evan Almighty.
Yes, I
Yes,
love that movie.
That's my favorite. One of my favorites.
Are we done yet? Love that movie.
yes. Ice
Oh, Little
Cube.
Man. Little Man.
I like Little Man.
Norbit.
Yes,
I love Norbit. That's one of
Yeah,
my favorite
I
movies.
like
It's
Norbit,
hilarious.
Coach Carter.
yes. Sam Jackson.
Idlewood.
Yes, I love that movie.
Me
It
too.
came out the same year as Dreamgirls, and it didn't get the attention that it should have. But that movie was one of my favorites.
It was good. The Bourne Supremacy. Now let me tell you, I'm a Bourne fan. I love all the Bourne movies.
And I love
Um,
Matt Damon. He was great to work with.
oh, I'm quite sure. I need some good stories. Bad Boys too. One of
Oh
the
yeah,
movies. Yeah,
on
Daddy
Bad Boy,
Daycare.
yes,
Daddy Daycare.
Daddy Daycare. We love that movie too.
Regina
Open
King.
Season.
White Chicks. White Chicks. I like that one too. So it's like a lot of fun.
Yeah, you've done so much, and now let's switch a little bit. We'll bring your husband in on this one. So your husband is also really big in Hollywood, and he does hair, right?
Exactly, he did for
And
40
and
years.
he's won Oscars and Academies for doing hair, right?
He's won Emmys. Oscars.
Wow. So
Oscars are a little
name some
different
of
for
I
a
know one of the
hairstyle.
people. So someone he worked really close with, Sammy Davis Jr., right?
Right.
Tell
And
us
he worked.
about me. Tell us about hanging with Sammy.
Well, my husband worked with Sammy on a show called Sammy and Company. It was a variety show. My experience with them was when that show went to Acapulco, and I was working at Good Times at the time, and there was no way that I wasn't going to go to Acapulco. So
Me too. I would go to.
and so that was one of those times when I told a tale that I had to go to court so that I could go to Acapulco. And when I came back, and it had a wonderful time, but I came back, I had what they call Montezuma's Revenge.
Mhm. Mhm.
And those amoeba had laid dormant until I got back on the job, and my stomach started cramping up, and I would have to run to a secret bathroom in pain
Wow.
all day, sit back down, and oh, here we go again. So I said that was when I decided I can never tell a lie about what it is and why I want to do something, because that was terrible.
All because you wanted to go hang out with Sammy Davis Jr. in Mexico.
And all the stars that were coming there to be on the show.
Now, one of your favorite quotes.
You can do all you can, and God will do the rest.
That was from my mother. My mother used to always say that to me, and I do work hard at doing things, and but once you do all you can, the miracles start to happen if you're faithful to God, and He knows your heart.
Mm. Oh, that's really powerful. That really says something, because in your book, listen, you got to get her book and read it. It's a great read. But what I love is that quote really summarized that you put how you operated. You put yourself in the positions so that God could really bless you. But you didn't quit. You never stopped. You never quit. What was it that made you keep going? What was it inside of you that said, don't give up, don't quit?
I knew that I had something to contribute. I just didn't know what it was. And so I had to discover that I didn't want to just be somebody who worked in the background in Hollywood and didn't have any type of reputation or had anything of value to offer. I wanted to offer something. My family is a family that has always emphasized education and doing your best. So for me to go to Hollywood, nobody else had ever done such a thing. And I had to make it successful so that my family wouldn't say, oh my God, look at that girl, So I wanted to make my family proud and do something of value. And that's what it's like when you come from a great family. The older I get, and I'm old now, I just appreciate my parents and who they were to us and how much they supported everything that we wanted to do, even when it sounded crazy, because I was going to college to be a social worker, and they thought, oh, she's going to help people. And then I turned around and said, oh, no, I'm going to Hollywood. Oh, God.
And you still end up helping people.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yes.
You have shared so much of your experience. We want to make sure that our listeners will go out and get your book at Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith. Please go, the author name again, for those who may be joining in, is Rod Stevenson. And so let's talk about let's look at the last thought, a song that comes to your mind. What is that song that comes to your mind?
The song, Great
I
is Thy
had some good
Faithfulness.
days. I had
Yes.
some good days and I had some hills to climb.
Yes. That was a song that I used to love to hear my pastor sing. No matter what, all of my good days outweigh my bad days. I will.
I won't complain.
Yes, I won't complain. I just
I
went
won't.
blank.
Thank you so much for coming and being our guest. And I pray that your story will be heard through people purchasing your book. Thank you so much.
Now,
It is
now, as we
available on
go ahead, I'm
it's
sorry.
available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and anywhere books are sold.
Now, I do want to ask you, Rod Stevenson. You say Sunday is still your favorite day of the week. That you quoted that several times throughout your book. Why is Sunday still your favorite day of the week?
Because that's a time that you set aside specifically, even though you pray each and every day. But on Sunday, you enter the house of God and you can just feel that spirit all around you. And that's a time to throw up your hands and just say, thank you, God, for all you've done for me. And it just is wonderful. I just hate at this point that we've had virtual church for so long that I miss being with the saints. I miss the music, being in the room and feeling the Spirit of God around me. It's just wonderful.
It
Our
is.
church is open back up. My husband is a deacon and an ambassador. He goes and helps every Sunday, but I can see it on TV, so I still do it here. I haven't gone back because I don't want to sit there with a mask on by myself, spread out, 6 feet
Right.
away from other people.
Right, right. Chapter 23, real quick. Obama, Mama, and Me. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, that was a part of my epilogue. And once I started telling it, it got so long. I said, "Oh, this is another chapter." But right after I retired, Obama was running for president, and I was determined that I was going to be there at that inauguration once he won. And we went, and that was just a beautiful experience. But also, that was a time when my mother got a chance to see the first Black president before she passed away. But also, I got a great time, had great times with her. She and I had so much fun together, and she never suffered. My mother was 91. She just got sick on a Thursday, and she went into the hospital, and on Sunday, she just passed away. I had gone to see her that Sunday, and she was telling me they're trying to give me morphine. I don't want any morphine. And I was like, when I got home and they told me she had passed away, I said, but she was still giving orders. I couldn't believe it, that she just went home to be with God just that fast and that easy.
Yeah,
But
you really, and throughout your book, and please go purchase the book. You can purchase it on Amazon, you said, and where else?
Barnes and Noble
Barnes and Nobles.
and
You
anywhere books are sold. It was at Target and Walmart. I hope it still is.
hopefully it's there. If not, that means it's selling out. You can go and
Yes.
find a lot of information. She talks a lot about everybody that she's experienced, even going to the Kennedy House, meeting Coretta Scott King, all of those different people that she talked about earlier. So make sure you go support. Now, as we get ready to end, I know it doesn't seem like we've been on for an hour. We have truly enjoyed this conversation. I need to call you offline to get some more wisdom because you are really dropping knowledge. But I do want to ask you, Ms. Stevenson, as we every week we try to go out with some encouragement. If you could just share some thoughtful advice to anyone, anything that God is leading you to, just share something with the people tonight to let them know to keep moving, keep pressing, and they too can be like you, a trendsetter, or someone who break down the walls and the barriers, and who can mend fences and reach across aisles and bring in new people and new views. So if you would just encourage them with the word.
When I wrote this book, I was thinking about my grandchildren because, I made a lot of silly mistakes, not anything real serious. It wasn't one of those type of things where I ended up in a drug house and all that, but just foolish mistakes. And I wanted them to see that I was a real person and that I had not done everything perfectly, but I turned it around. And the main thing that I had to do was to rededicate my life to Christ. And that's what kept me and changed the trajectory of my life. I just want my grandchildren to have confidence and know that sometimes you get knocked down, but you have to get back up and keep going forward. And just always believe in yourself and believe in God, and just live to make your family proud of you and God to appreciate who you are as a person in Him.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I know, that was amazing.
Yes, thank you. So remember, go and get this book. Look at God, My Hollywood Walk of Faith. I want to say fame for some reason. My Hollywood Walk of Faith, Rod Stevenson. And so wherever books are sold, make sure you go out and purchase this book and hear her story. Again, we say thank you. Hey, listen, whatever you do, make sure you do it with all your heart. And if you can't do it with all your heart, put your heel on it and walk away.
Yeah. She loved the quote, Roz.
I love it.
That's our quote, Roz. Thank you, everyone, for tuning
That's
in.
so
Now,
cute.
we'll be back same time, same station. Definitely not the same way. It just gets better and better every week. We appreciate you guys and we love you. Thank you, Roz Stevenson. Thank you for your story and thank you for sharing tonight. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.